D plus.
They're the only team that even rounded out lower than a C, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, honestly, where do you want to start with them? Because they actually have some picks that I really like, but it's
Right.
just
Well,
the beginning
they only
is
have
so
two
rough.
that I like. They only have two that I like, and
And
that's
it's like
Brandon Dorless and Braylon Trice.
what I'm gonna say is this. I would have loved Rook. I would have loved it if Jerzan wasn't sitting right there. You know what I mean?
And also they traded up to get him.
Like that's where I don't get it. That's where it's very confusing. Um, and then Penix again. People are trying to compare it to the Jordan Love situation.
It's
And I know
not the same
we're going to
thing.
sound like a broken record because everybody has said this, and it's not like we're the first person to come to this realization. But when Jordan Love was drafted, he was 20, and he was very raw, but the tools were there. Michael Penix is developed, maybe even to his ceiling. And then he's 24 with the multiple serious injuries in the past. Like they're him and Jordan Love are so far from being the same prospect. Like Michael Penix was the type of player where if you were going to take him, you should have been taking him to play right now, in my opinion. Like he was the one QB you could even say minus Caleb that it was like, no, yeah, like get him out there now. Like he's ready. He's ready. He hit his college development ceiling. Like he's ready to get out here and play now. I think he was like the last quarterback I would take to sit and rest for a few years. Like I just don't get it. I really don't. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Saints fan. This is just even Falcons fans agree. Like this was truly
Well,
the
you should
biggest
love
wild.
it as a Saints fan. Like he's not going to play. They just
Yeah,
wasted the eighth pick.
like it's truly, and that's where, like we were saying too. Like you could have traded down one or two slots if this was what you were gonna do, and still gotten your guy. Like ah, it's rough. Falcons fans, it's rough.
I think that he would have been a very good fit in the Raiders offense. I think that would have been good for him. But yeah, and like you said
That
about
would have been
Rook,
so much better.
yeah, like you said with Rook, it's just like why trade up and take a guy that's probably going to be there when you're picking? Like I just don't think Terry Fontenot is a very good GM. Like that's what
Yeah,
I'm getting to this point.
if that video of him explaining to Arthur Blank why they drafted a quarterback is actually real and it's not taken out of context, it's one of the funniest videos in NFL history. If you know what I'm talking about.
But you have to think about it, Dobbs. Like you know what the guaranteed money like escrow rule, right?
No, yeah.
So it's like Arthur Blank had to put $100 million in an escrow account. Like he had to take money out of his bank account and put it in an escrow account to know that Kirk Cousins is going to get paid. So it's a stupid old rule that they need to change. But anyway, imagine putting $100 million away, trying to win a Super Bowl, and your GM goes out and drafts a 24-year-old guy who had two ACL surgeries, who's going to be probably 27, 28 by the time he starts. And I think, I will say this,
This is some
personally,
Brandon Whedon type activity, bro.
I personally think the age thing is a little overblown. Like, I get it. Like, he'll be older. The issue is, you made a great point. He's developed. What are you going to be teaching Michael Penix at this point? Like, yes, you'll be teaching him NFL stuff and things like that, and they'll learn from Kirk. But in terms of like developing as a player, what is he gaining?
Yeah, especially as from sitting, like that's what he would the Raiders would have been best case scenario. He would have been throwing those piss missiles that we know he throws. Like he would have been him and Devontae Adams would have been a fun, fantastic duo. And not that him and Drake London and Kyle Pitts can't be, but we're not going to see it for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Like it doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. So good picks on Dorless and Trice, especially for the value, in my opinion. But outside of that, I don't get what they were doing with their class here.
Yes, but like if you're a Falcons fan, you really did have a chance to kind of take a bat this offseason and kind of start denting in that door. If the door is a representative for a Super Bowl window, or cracking the window, I guess I should say instead. And you put what's that? I can't think of the product, but you put like you put something that just
Flex Seal, right?
You put Flex Seal over it, and then you pass the window so that now it can't fucking open. Like I don't know what they were doing, bro. I really think it was just truly the most.
It's like you're not picking top 10 next year.
No,
So maybe
absolutely
they're
not.
looking at
Like,
it like this. If Kirk Cousins, God forbid, gets hurt again, you have a guy that can play right away. And you're not really going to have too many struggles. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he makes that transition, but that's got to be the thinking, right? Because maybe they're looking, okay, I actually like this angle. I just thought of it. What if they're looking at the Aaron Rodgers situation? Like, what if they're like Kirk Cousins gets hurt and we're just in the same position we were in last year with a backup quarterback starting?
no, that does make sense when you look at it like that. But
I
again,
don't
to me,
agree
it's
with
just,
it, but
if
that
they
just
even
has to
if
be
they
the only
just
way.
traded down a little bit for Penix, I wouldn't have even I would be so not on the same team. I'd be like, you got assets, you made it work. It makes more sense. It's the fact that they made such a reach without getting the assets that they could have gotten. More than anything, I think we can agree on.
And I'll say this before we move on. You'd be able to sell this pick to me if it was JJ McCarthy
Oh,
because he's younger.
well, literally in the snap of a finger. And again, that's the thing is, it's nothing against Penix. It's just Penix was destined, in my opinion, to go to a situation he was going to be starting from day one, and the Falcons pulled the ultimate wild card.
Carolina Panthers, C plus.
Oof.
I think the Panthers have honestly been one of the worst drafting teams in the last couple of years. They're just not good at it. I don't know why you trade up one pick for Xavier Legette.
You know what I will say? This is because I actually do want to say this real quick because we were saying the same thing on draft night. Bill Belichick and his football genius. I caught something where on the McAfee show, you know what he said? I was watching, after our live, I went to go see the highlights. And it blew my mind because I never thought of it like this. But you know why Belichick said they did that?
Why?
Because then you get the fifth-year option
Right.
that you wouldn't have gotten. And so they must really like this guy. Like they do,
Yeah.
they really like him, where they were like, okay, I'm going to trade up and give up assets to get that extra fifth year because the receiver market is so fucked right now. If you look at that from that angle, I totally get it. But it's shock. We're going to agree. I like Xavier Legette. It's shocking that they did it for Xavier Legette. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, I don't. This is my issue with the Legette pick. I care less about them moving back into the first forum and more about the player because, okay, what is the goal of the Carolina Panthers right now? Like, what is the one goal of the Panthers? To develop Bryce Young, right?
Get out Bryce.
So, instead of getting a proven receiver, let's get a guy who only had 1 year with more than 18 receptions. Like, I don't understand it. Like, Xavier Legette
And more of like a
Deontay
Debo type role guy, like that might not even necessarily be like absolutely world beating corners one-on-one. Like,
doesn't make sense to me. I get the receiver. You go receiver. Get Keon. Get Ladd.
A.D. Mitchell with his catch radius.
Like,
A.D. Mitchell with his
Legette?
radius for Bryce would have been such a nice. That's why I thought there was no doubt that if it wasn't like when they traded up, I really thought I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what, 80's on the board. They might have 80 higher on their board, and they didn't think this was going to be possible. That's why I really thought I was like, we might just see A.D. Mitchell go to the Panthers right now. And I'm going to be honest, I think it would have been a much better solution, much better landing spot. But again, if Legette ends up being a guy who can develop and keep developing long term, and you get a Debo type of 2.0 kind of guy, well, yeah, we'll look back on this and say it was a good pick. But again, though, back to the reality, the Panthers don't have guys besides Adam Thielen that even separate right now. And if Xavier Legette is the same mold where he doesn't separate and he's not getting open for Bryce, we're going to have another year of absolutely basically zero development and even more confidence being lost from Bryce. Where are we going to be sitting after this year if Bryce loses more confidence? We're probably going to be slowly sliding into Bryce is going to be really, really close to busting out, like almost what the Dolphins did to Tua. And they're going to need an absolute miracle to pull him out of it, if that's the case.
You want to puke right now?
Oh, I'm ready. I got the trash can actually right next to me. I'm ready.
I saw a 2025 mock draft that had the Carolina Panthers taking Shedeur Sanders #1 overall. Bro, it's just like, okay, so I will say this. I do like the Jonathan Brooks pick because I do think the running back room is not that great.
And if Brooks comes back healthy, special player. Like actually special player if he comes back healthy.
Right. So I get it because Miles Sanders is probably a horrible contract. I remember we got slandered for saying it was a horrible contract.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder, bro. I almost forgot about that, Panthers fans.
Yeah. Panthers fans are delusional. I do like I do
I don't
like
think anymore. I think David Tepper set them right. I think David Tepper made them come back to reality.
No, bro, they got Dave Canales. It's all fixed. They did have Jatavion Sanders, who I did like, and Shao Smith Wade. I do like that. They double up on linebacker with Trevor Wallace and Michael Barrett.
Love Trevin Wallace too.
So I think their draft was just okay. But
I think you like the later. Here's the thing. Like this is really this is where it rounds. This is the problem with it more than anything. I do like a lot of the guys they took, but it's just Xavier Legette in the first round. I just don't. It's just for a team that literally desperately needed
sure things.
You needed a separator.
Things.
You needed a separator so badly, and that's Xavier Legette actually was separating very solid last year. I don't want to discredit him. He was solid, very solid last year. But again, like you just said, on a 1-year sample size, it's just so hard to like when there was guys that had 3 or 4 year sample sizes like AD Mitchell where they were doing the same thing. It's just a little confusing. And I think more than anything, like we were saying, how about this? Because I think you'll agree on this. Love Jonathan Brooks, potentially special talent. But if he comes back and he doesn't hit that ceiling and he's injury riddled for the rest of his career and that's just how things go, well, then basically your first 2-round picks you could have spent way, way, way more pressing needs. And I just that's where I'm looking at it more than anything. Like I probably personally would have doubled up on receiver. And I feel like we know we're in an era where running backs don't matter as much. Like I just think they could have used the picks for much better value more than anything.
Let me ask you this real quick. If you're Bryce Young, would you rather have Xavier Legette and Jonathan Brooks, or would you rather have Ladd McConkey and AD Mitchell?
Like, that's the perfect way to spin it. Like, that's exactly.
It's just like, oh God, man. It's just frustrating. Anyway, two just disgusting draft classes back to back. Not as this draft class isn't as disgusting as the Falcons, but New Orleans Saints, we have an A. I think the Saints had a pretty good draft class. I mean, Tali Fluaga in the first, Kool-Aid McKinstry, but I'll kind of let you go, Dobbs.
No, so like what I'll say about this draft class is every Saints fan would agree. For once, this is truly like it's like an era changed. Like there really is like a new approach of thinking in the building. The Saints really basically were just going BPA at positions that we actually desperately needed to fill. We weren't taking project guys that have super high upsides but very low floors like we've been doing for the last like 4 or 5 years. I mean, Talise Fuaga was one of my top 7 or 8 guys in the entire class. And I mean, getting it pick 14, I absolutely am in love with it. Kool-Aid, a guy Nick Saban said he loves, who's going to be an absolute lockdown on the outside. Where again, with that slot versatility, but please, Dennis Allen, he's an outside corner. Let's move a Debo or someone else to the slot. I don't know what we're going to do. Or if we're trading Sean, which I guess is maybe even more the assumption, we now have a duo. If that's the case, I hope we keep Sean, but that's just rumors I'm hearing. So even if it has to be Kool-Aid and then a Debo with, Alontae Taylor on the inside, I love that. Spencer Rattler in the 5th, one of my favorite picks in the entire class. I mean, like, I think, again, like I said earlier, like Spencer falling to us, with, in the new Clint Kubiak offense, getting a year or 2 to sit at least. I think that we got really high upside on that. Bub Means, someone I didn't get too much film on, but, I was crunching over the last day or so. I think he's going to be able to fill out that perfect, wide receiver 3-4 that we're going to need. If someone gets injured, he's going to be that big body, sure-handed guy that we desperately need. Jalen Ford, instant special teams depth, but more than anything, we also do need a linebacker, so he fills out 2 needs. Christian Boyd, funny enough, our 6th round pick, this is going to be someone that Saints fans are going to see potentially starting even at some point this year because we have such little depth on the interior, and he has very high upside. I actually love that pick a ton. And then Josiah Ezram, just more depth on the outside for the tackles, but you know me, I'm always trenches first, so I'm going to take that all day in the 7th round.
I will say this. I think I know what the change was.
What was the change?
I think they said, Mickey Loomis, you better start fucking winning.
Yeah, dude, Mickey Loomis, I told you, Mickey Loomis had his feet set. Mickey Loomis had the blunt lit for the last 5 or 6 years. Like, he was chilling. The time was up for the bullshit, Mickey. And I think that he really started to realize it.
I think I do really like Rattler in the 5th. And getting Kool-Aid with Fuaga, you guys got really good value, in my opinion.
I would say Kool-Aid seems like one of those guys, because, I didn't know too much about him personally prior to, it's more just like we have to get to so many guys. All I'm really crunching is tape. I'm not really learning a lot about them personally or how they are as a person. I'm going to say, like, when he got that call and he was doing those interviews, he seemed just like a man on a mission. Like he's like, I'm gonna just show up and I'm gonna just fucking kill shit. Like that.
Oh
That's the
yeah.
type of mentality I love to see. So I'm definitely very excited about that.
Anything else on the Saints before we move to the Bucks?
No, but finally another good Saints class. How about that, bro? You gotta love that if you're a Saints fan.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have B plus. So it's so funny because if you look at this draft class, it is just such like a Bucks draft class. Like
It really is.
like I really do like Graham Barton. I think Graham Barton was probably the perfect fit for them. And in my opinion, I know the Cowboys probably really did like Tyler Guyton because of his upside. But I also do think that Barton would have been a perfect addition for them, and maybe trading back to 29 was a bit far. But with that being said, I think that, like we said, the Cowboys had a decent class. Chris Braswell, I love adding an edge to them in the second round.
He's going to cook on this D line.
Something that was underrated, though, is I did think the Bucks kind of did need a receiver. And Trey Palmer, Godwin, Mike Evans, McMillan, like I really do like that core. And then obviously Tyke Smith as a safety. I don't love Tyke Smith. I think there could have been, some better options, but overall not bad. And then Bucky Irving. To kind of, complement Rachaad White, I do think is a great selection in the fourth.
He's coming for the starting job.
You think?
Watch out, he's coming. Dude, I think he's going to take that scat back role early. But like we said, Bucky Irving's one of those guys. I give a fuck about what the testing looks like. When you cut on Bucky Irving tape, he's a fucking football player, and the way he moves is stuff you cannot teach.
So overall, I think the Bucks had a very solid class. I think that is the best way to put it. I think
how could we forget too? Last thing on the Bucks too, like before we move on, like Devin Cope in the 7th round. That's an upside. You might have gotten truly your starting tight end in the 7th round.
Play next to K. Dotton and what's his name? Ko Keefe or something?
Yeah, Ko Keefe.
Yeah.
What a name.
I think the NFC South had one of the weirdest draft class divisions this year.
Yeah, it was very polarizing.
Very polarizing.